So today we are going to talk to Tim Fox, who's the Centre Manager of the Athona community at Bradwell-on-Sea. And I wanted to ask you today if you could outline to me what were the factors that affected Athona Bradwell's decision to undertake the energy project at this time.
Well, first of all, we'd identified in the first instance a problem with our boiler. So we've been reliant on LPG here for a long time, and our boiler for the last couple of years has only just about scraped through on its safety standards and admissions. And so we realised that this year coming forward we would have no choice but to replace that. So that really just, and also with the situation with our ovens here as well, they were 25 years old, and again LPG and standards have moved on, and so they were needing replacement fairly imminently as well. And so it led us to undertake a full energy review of the situation and what we do, and also having had in our recent sort of 5-year strategy, one of the things that was really highlighted and made very strong by our local committee and our trustees was to look at how Athona could be more environmentally friendly and sustainable moving forward. So we undertook this full energy review and then acted on that where appropriate.
And roughly how much were you spending on LPG?
Depending on the time of year, it would be as much as £2,000 every 5 weeks. What's that, £400 a week, to the summer months where maybe that would drop to maybe £150, £200.
That's a lot of money.
A huge amount, yeah.
And one of the things that we often used to shout about at Athona was our ability to generate a lot of our own electricity, but obviously all the cooking and all the heating was done using fossil fuels essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It was hidden. It was hidden because you would drive down the track and you'd come into Athona. The first thing you'd see as you drive down the track is you see the wind turbine, and then as you walk down you saw solar panels, and because the amount of electricity that we have is very limited, the welcome talks that we would give would talk about the fact that we're off grid here, and therefore we needed to be mindful of the way that we used our electricity. But actually what that did mask was the amount of fossil fuel that we were using in the form of LPG, which was absolutely, because all of our hot water, whether that was underfloor heating or, again, which is something that's not seen, so the underfloor heating, our showers, the water for washing up, and all of our cooking as well was all reliant on LPG.
And on the electricity also, there were a bit problems, weren't there, with the drawing down certain amounts of electricity?
Yeah.
There was the famous only hand dryer on the premises.
Yeah. And that was the other thing with looking at doing the energy audit, was that we realised we were, if not at capacity, we'd exceeded capacity in the amount of electricity that we were drawing using, and we were constantly pushing it to the absolute limit, and often turning on a hairdryer and the system would shut down. We couldn't draw much more than 5 kilowatts in total at any one time and also with the way the system was, it was a health and safety, a potential health and safety risk, because when you're pushing your capability to the limits, there's always the danger of overheating. However, I do emphasise that we were aware, and so we're very, very careful and so had the systems set up in such a way that it would immediately shut down if we were trying to draw too much.
That must have made you quite anxious, though, at times, maybe when you had particularly groups that were not so familiar with the history of Athona, the DIY history of Athona, worrying that it might crash at any time.
Yeah. So traditionally, our busiest community time is from Easter through till September. We do have other working weekends, but that's our traditional time. And of course, that's when we're not using as much electricity. You've got longer daylight hours, you've got a lot more sunshine, and so the demand on electricity wasn't as high, and so again I think that led us into a false sense of security, as in we don't need this much electricity. However, for the community to be surviving, so we could operate during the summer, for our core mission and purpose throughout the summer, we were very reliant on school groups, on church groups, youth groups that would come throughout the year. And of course, when they were coming in the winter time, we needed our electricity, and we needed our electricity all of the time. And so it was a real juggling act for those of us on the ground to be able to manage that, so we could have the dishwashers working, that people could still charge their mobile phones, or if they were having lectures and talks that were using PowerPoint and overhead projectors, you couldn't afford for the system to crash.
Yeah.
And so it was a real juggling act for us to keep that going.
And so what are the changes now that we have? What have we decided to swap to? We've gone away from fossil fuels altogether now, haven't we?
Yes. So well, that's not quite true. In so much as we have the existing turbine that feeds into our electrical system, and we have a huge now array of extra solar panels, and we've moved to a three-phase system, whereas we were a single phase, and the whole of the site has now been rewired so that our infrastructure, the amount of electricity that we meet all of the regulatory and health and safety requirements. We do still have a diesel generator, which is a backup system. So we would rely on that, which obviously uses fossil fuel in the form of diesel. But that is a backup system. However, when we go into the summer, the project isn't 100% finished yet. We need to do a little bit more fundraising because the audit showed that we would need a second turbine as well. So this time of year, we're sitting out here in the sunshine, absolutely fantastic. We're getting all the energy that we need and some more, and then we push that back into hot water. But once we get into the winter months, and we haven't got the amount of sunshine that we have now, and maybe a cold, frosty morning that doesn't actually have an awful lot of wind, and the days are that much shorter, then without the other turbine, we run the risk of having to be reliant on fossil fuel to supplement, but hopefully not to the extent that we were before. But all the more reason to make sure that we finish the project and get our wind turbine.
So there's a bit of fundraising for people to offset their carbon footprint.
Absolutely, absolutely, and hopefully that as well that there will be we can identify other organisations and various green funds that we may be able to match fund with as well. I would hope so.
Okay. Now, I suppose some people might ask, how come we haven't decided to join up to the national grid? And could you tell us a little bit, because I believe we had a quote fairly recently about how much that would cost.
Yes, I can't give you the exact figures at the moment. So perhaps what I could do is we could find that out for you, and you can add this to the blog or wherever this video link is going. But it was somewhere in the region, if I remember rightly, just to lay the cables in the region of £160,000 just to bring the cabling in.
Right.
And then we would need because we're so far away from the power site, we would need our own substation.
Right.
At a tremendous cost, and then we would be paying rent on that substation as well.
And then, of course, paying for all the electricity as well.
And then paying for all of the electricity as well. So it just wasn't a feasible option.
Okay. Yeah. That's very useful information. Thanks very much, Tim.
No, you're very welcome, and come and see us.
Yeah.
See for yourself and see how it's working.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Suzanne.